Hey guys, welcome to Fun&Gun. Figured now that I finally got 1,000 rounds through my Watchtower Apache PewView edition here, we'll go ahead and kind of give you a little bit of an update, go over some of the things I've learned about this gun within that 1,000 rounds. I'll go ahead and show you what kind of wear the gun has on it after 1,000 rounds. And we'll go ahead and start off by showing you that this particular gun is unloaded. There is nothing in the magazine here. And the first thing I've actually changed on the gun here would be the magazine bases, because it just comes with the little cheap plastic bases on there. So what I did was I went to a company called Boss Components. It's a company out of Australia, and I went ahead and picked up these mag bases for all my 17-round magazines. And really the reason I went with these particular mag bases over some of the others is because they have nice traction on the side, a little bit of extra traction on the bottom, so when you're doing a reload, you got a little bit something else to grab onto. And let's be honest, they just look cool in my opinion, so that's the main reason I went with these. And these should work on any of your 2011 magazines that have the button style takedown. And that is just about all of your magazines that are made for these guns. If you go check out my 2011 magazine video going over, does one company actually make all the 2011 magazines? I go over that in more detail, and that is the company Checkmate. Actually does, in my opinion, make almost all of the 2011 magazines, at least the ones in this country. There's a few exceptions to that. You just have to check out the video, but nevertheless, that is the mag base I chose to go with, and they are nice mag base. So they got the slope on them, so it helps the gun fit into the box. We'll get into that a little bit more in a second. So let's go ahead and talk about the one accessory that I had in the gun in the original video and most of my idpa videos as well, and that is this Tech slide stop thumb release. And if you watch my previous video of me shooting this gun in idpa, I had quite a few issues with this actually locking the gun open just randomly when it wasn't supposed to. So the reason I feel like I had that issue in the last competition, but not so much in the first two competitions, comes to the point was I was actually shooting this gun one-handed, just practicing getting the hang of it more or less for that competition, because there's a stage you had to shoot strong hand only. And I noticed that this thumb rest slide stop was starting to walk out of the gun under recoil. So what I did was I come back in the house, took a Dremel tool and made a notch right here in the back. I didn't go all the way up the first time, and I actually then took a pointed Dremel tool bit and went ahead and made a nice groove right there. So when you click this in, the detent engages in that hole and prevents it from being able to just pull straight back out without having to have something to push on it like a punch or something. And that did indeed prevent it from coming out like I was worried it was going to do. But what it also did was that originally I didn't, like I said, have this notch cut all the way to the top, and I've since went back and cut it to the top. And I believe it was not allowing the slide stop to fully disengage, so it's making it easier to knock it back on. And I went ahead and made that notch, and I haven't tested it with this notch cut so far, but at some point I'll get around to trying that to see if it actually fixes the issue, because I do kind of like having a little bit of a reference point to set my thumb on top of. But for now, the factory slide stop actually looks a lot better anyway, so I'm just going to leave that in there for the time being, and like I said, I'll mess with this in another point. So that's one accessory I tried that didn't work. Hadn't had any issues out of the big button there. I just figured I'd mention that because that's the only other thing I really changed on the gun. Okay, now let's get to the biggest issue that I kind of had with this gun to start with, and that was the factory. From the factory, this safety was extremely easy, as you've seen me. If you've watched my original video and my original idpa and brief review video, I mentioned that this safety was extremely easy to flip on to the point where you could just kind of touch it and your safety was on. And that's not a big deal if you got a large enough hand to ride the thumb safety. On either side, it is an ambidextrous large thumb safety, but anybody that's been around the channel for a while knows I don't have the largest hand, so my hand lands well below being able to properly ride the safety. So it was really easy to touch that and knock the safety on. So what I've done there is I'll get a little bit more detail on it when I take the slide off to show you the wear, but there's a detent hole on the front side of the safety that's supposed to engage with the detent pin here. And the way this particular safety fits into this frame, it wasn't coming down low enough for that pin to engage into the little hole on the front of that. So what I did was I took the same bit that I used to make this channel on this slide stop, and it's just kind of, like I said, just a real nice pointed bit. And I went ahead and kind of looks like a Christmas tree. And I took that tip and I went ahead, and obviously after you flip this up and down quite a few times, there's going to be a little bit of a line on front of the slide stop here. So what you're going to do is you're going to go from that hole in the top, and you're gonna kind of make it into an oval and bring it down. And you wanna just do it real slow. You might wanna insert it back into the gun, and then you wanna make sure when it gets to the bottom point where you're gonna cut the hole to, that your safety is fully disengaged and the slide clears it. And when I first got done doing this, it was almost impossible to re-engage the safety. And after I made the little notch there, I went back and took the bit and kind of turned it sideways and chamfered the edge on the bottom side. And then I took a file and cleaned it all up. That way, when you want to go ahead and re-engage it, the detent pops out of the hole just as easy as it pops into the hole. And that made it to where you could actually rest the safety on my fingers right here, and it'll hold the weight of the gun up. And if you kind of just give it a jolt, it'll go ahead and turn it on. But it makes it to where you can shoot this gun and not have to worry about just touching it and knocking the safety on. Like I said, I'll insert some pictures of that, kind of give you a little bit of a closer look when I get the slide off here in just a second. So let's go ahead and pull the slide off this particular gun, and I'll get you a little bit closer look at the wear, or in the case of this gun with this awesome PVD finish, the lack of wear that is. A little bit hard to get this pin out with how tight this gun's fit. Let's see here, there we go. Okay, let's go ahead and set the slide off to the side there for just a second. We'll go ahead and talk to you about the frame here. I'm gonna go ahead and set the hammer down just for good time's sake there. And as you can see here, there's a little bit of silvering on this frame, but that's really it. This frame looks almost identical to the day I bought the gun, and that to me is absolutely crazy. This PVD coating is pretty awesome stuff and holds up very well over 1,000 rounds. And if you've watched the actual PewView video, he actually talks about his gun having about 10,000 rounds on it, and his doesn't even have any wear on it either. So go ahead and cock that back up, turn the safety on, and like I said, I'll give you a little bit of a closer look at this, and you can't really see it just the best, I'm sure. Like I said, I'll insert some pictures off of the side here showing that, but that is what I did to make the safety engage properly and stay disengaged when I need it to. And while we're talking about the safeties, one more thing. If you watch PewView, or his actual video on this gun, he's talking about when he was designing this gun, how he wanted the safeties to be nice and tucked into the gun so you didn't accidentally flick them on. And that was something he was worried about as well. And this is not actually the safeties that he spec'd to the gun. As you can see here, these are pretty large safeties, and actually called Watchtower and asked them about that. And I was told that the original 200 of these guns do have the safeties that he spec'd, and the ones after that, they had to go to a different safety. And that is specifically because they ran into a supply chain issue. So most of them, well, I'm pretty sure are going to have this safety right here, which is a nice safety. It's just, it doesn't properly stay disengaged the way it was fit into the gun from the factory. So like I said, I went ahead and fixed that. Now, I will say, do that modification at your own risk. I'm not a licensed gunsmith. I just wanted my safety to work properly. And when you do that, make sure you go ahead and tape everything off on this really nice, so that way you don't have to worry about easily scratching your nice PVD coated safety there. So that is the frame. I guess we'll go ahead and show you while we've got the frame here. Is you can tell that the finish is anodized. It's not PVD because this is aluminum. I don't think you can PVD aluminum. And it is skinning up from the mag, or in the mag well, but that's to be expected. So I'm not going to knock that. Just figured I'd show that. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the slide here. We'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the recoil assembly here. And a few things I've done here is, I mentioned in the original video, I do have a Wilson Combat shock buffer. I just prefer the way that it deadens the blow of the action coming to the rear when you're shooting the gun. And that's just a cheap thing you can get if you want to give that a try. And it does actually fit in the gun properly. It goes all the way up against the dust cover right here and does not prevent the spring from fully compressing, so that's pretty cool. Now, while we're talking about the spring here, this gun comes with a 9-pound, an 8-pound, and a 7-pound spring. It comes with a 9-pound in the gun from the factory. And I finally got a chance in the last so many weeks here to put this gun on slow-mo and just show myself, or shoot it on slow-mo, so I could get an idea of how I'm shooting the gun. And I end up putting the 9-pound in it first, obviously, because that's what was in the gun. And it worked just fine. Obviously, with like cycling-wise, we'll get into like the jams and stuff I've had with this gun in a second, but cycling-wise, you can see the action come up, and then it would come back down and it kind of dip below the point I was trying to get to land back at. So tried the 7-pound one, which it didn't have any dip, but it come back down really nice and slow. So we kind of went with the Goldilocks effect here, and we landed on the 8-pound spring, which gives you a nice rise, just a little bit of a rise, but it brings it back down fast enough, and it doesn't really dip, at least for the ammo I'm shooting and the way I'm shooting the gun with this buffer in it. The 8-pound spring is the spring I have currently installed. And as you can see, there's a little bit of wear and kind of just finish disc formation on the guide rod here, whatever you want to call it. And it didn't have the best PVD coated, I'm going to be honest with you, from the factory. But it's still nice and slick. But it's to be expected with this many small parts moving on top of each other. Now, what's really just a testament to how awesome this PVD finish is when you pull the barrel out here, there's absolutely no wear on the front side of this barrel where the gun locks up at. Hardly any anything around where the locking lugs are at. There's just a little bit right here on the hood where it unlocks at. Got a little bit on the sides right here. Your feed lip still looks exactly like it did out of the factory. And that's after 1,000+ rounds. I know I'm over 1,000. I'm not exactly sure where I'm at anymore. I kind of lost count of it. I know it's at least 1,000+. But the fact that there's no wear on this barrel to me is pretty awesome. And like I said, PewView said he's got around 10,000 rounds through his, and his still looks this way. So that's pretty cool. And how slick this is, even without oil on, is pretty awesome. And while we got the barrel here, I'm going to talk about this comp. I will say, with how tight this comp is, a little bit of a pain in the butt to clean. Not a big deal, but I just like to keep myself on top of it. I don't want to let it build up too much in there, so I do go ahead and keep that scraped out. But a little bit of a pain to clean, not a big deal. Just figured I'd mention that. Now let's get over to the slide here. You got a little bit of wear right here where your slide stop rubs on it when it's getting ready to engage. You got a little bit right here where your drop safety is rubbing on the bottom of it, and just a little bit where it locks up at. And other than that, inside the rails, there's just a smidge, but this slide, it looks almost the way it did when it came out of the factory, and to me, that's pretty awesome. Got a little bit right here where the case rubs on it at. Nothing gonna hurt the gun. It's just, to me, how awesome this PVD finish is how well it holds up to wear. Now, that little bit of wear there, I will say this gun was extremely smooth right out of the box, but just shooting it a little bit and kind of breaking it in, getting a little bit of wear on it at all, made this thing absolutely buttery smooth. We'll get to that, and as we put it back together here, we'll go ahead and talk about some of the issues I've had with it jamming. And within the factory configuration, using the Checkmate style magazines, I've had essentially absolutely no jams with this gun at all. I'm gonna put the recoil assembly back in there, but the only real jams I've had with this gun, well, it was only one jam, and I don't consider this locking it open really a jam. That's not the gun's fault. That is me for trying to try different stuff that wasn't factory with the gun. But the only real issue I had was trying to use this gun with Springfield Prodigy magazines. This gun does not at all like Springfield Prodigy magazines, and that led to the only jam I've actually ever had. Get the linkage line back up there. There was actually a jam where it did not feed properly. And this can be a little tricky to get back in because this gun is extremely tightly fit, and I don't want to scratch it up, so gotta be careful with it. But we got her back in there. And the biggest issue with the Prodigy magazines, and it wasn't just with my gun, my buddy has a Mac and had the same issue, is with one round left in the magazine, the gun would lock open every single time. So got rid of the Prodigy magazines, picked up some more magazines like this. Hadn't had that issue since then, so that's the only jam I've ever had with the gun, and that's because I was trying to be cheap and use different magazines. And like I said, this gun is just unbelievably smooth. With the 8-pound spring in it, it makes it feel even smoother than that because of the less resistance on it. And I'm not gonna lie, it's got 1,000 rounds on it, but it's probably got 100,000 rounds of me sitting around doing this because it is very satisfying how smooth this gun is, just to watch everything move and lock back together, and just how smooth this gun is. I absolutely love this gun, and I'm gonna go ahead and okay, with that being said, just kind of figured I'd go ahead and make this particular video kind of talking about a few different things I've heard about this gun, putting 1,000 rounds through it. One more thing I almost forgot to mention is I did mention that this base plate was cut sloped to help it fit in the box, and that is the competition box. This gun did fit in the idpa carry optics box. It meets weight limit. The only thing that's a little bit questionable is the fact that this comp is technically not part of the barrel. It's threaded on, so, and it does say in the rules it needs to be integral to the gun, but my way of saying this is integral is This is threaded specifically for this comp. This is the only thing that can thread onto this. The guide rod runs into the inside of the comp, and the comp is flush cut with the frame and the slide. Therefore, I'm pretty sure you can't shoot this gun without the comp, so for that reason, I call that integral to the gun. But I was told that this gun with the comp should be IDPA legal. The reason that matters to me is I do plan on eventually start going to some of the state-style matches, and I didn't want to get used to shooting this gun local and not be able to shoot it in state. But really just figured I'd go ahead and give you a little bit of an update on my thoughts on this Watchtower Apache, and that's all I had for today. Okay, if you made it this far, I just want to say thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. If you're looking for more Fun&Gun right now, you can click one of the 2 recommended videos there. If you're looking for more Fun&Gun later, you can go ahead and click that there subscribe button. I sure would appreciate it. And if you're finding me from Facebook, go ahead and click that open app button at the top to make all that a lot easier, and I'll see you next time.